Before starting, though, I just want to give a shout out to the following projects who did not make this top 5, but I thought were still really good projects. In no particular order, I want to give a shout out to 196, I want to give a shout out to 165, I want to give a shout out to 138, I want to give a shout out to 135, and I want to give a shout out to 128. So hopefully those images are visible to you now. So guys, I think your projects were really good, but I actually think that this 100 was pretty strong compared to the previous first 100. So first project, I'm going to be going through these in descending order. So I'm going to go from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So in 5th place, I'm going to go with project 157 Design Hall. So I really loved this project the first time I looked at it last week. But I am aware that there has been some criticism in the comments about, kind of what is it about this project that has attracted me to it. And I think, to really put it quite bluntly, I think when I look at this project, I could just see it being built. And I think that seems like it could be quite a low barrier of entry for these projects. But it is nice to see something that you could imagine actually being there. And I think that's important. So what do I mean by that? For example, if we just look at the aerial view to begin with, the way in which this would be constructed looks quite simplistic. It looks quite legible in a way. There is a primary structural frame. There is then a number of different kind of layers and skins to the facade. And then there is a roof element. And then there is this sort of kind of fabric element to it. It is not highly fussy. It is interesting in that it's got these kind of stepped boxes in that the floor plates are just slightly overhanging as the project kind of goes up. I think that's great. So that's one place to start generally. I also just sort of like the general attitude that this project has. For example, even just the name, Design Hall, just sounds kind of really interesting, As far as naming projects go, a lot of projects have got that wrong. Design Hall seems kind of cool. I could definitely imagine you kind of meeting someone at the Design Hall, So what is the Design Hall? The Design Hall is a place of and for assembly of people and things. Again, I find that really interesting. So when we look at the second image, I just love this drawing. Now, there has been some criticism of my selection for this project, or there will likely be some criticism for my selection of this project, and that I've been quite clear in that I've been charmed by the visuals. I think the visuals are beautiful in this project. I love the style of images. I love the mix of images, the type of images. But generally speaking, I think that's important. I think that's so important for a competition. This project sells itself really well. So I'll explain what I mean by that. And for the amount of projects so far that have been just sort of showing the same type of isometric diagrams in an attempt to justify the shape of the building with arrows and more arrows and text, these guys have done it in a really interesting way. So what they have basically done is they have sort of absorbed the references of the traditional market hall, the passenger ferry, the blimp hangar, and they have translated that into what they call the design hall. Now, I find that just a very simplistic but effective way of communicating the following. Why is your building shaped the way that it is? And not enough projects in this competition have been able to do that in a coherent, effective way. It's really frustrating. Anyone could put anything on this site and then post-rationalize it. And maybe that's what these architects have done, but I've been convinced by it. So let's read a little bit more. A singular and enduring form, Design Hall links the industrial with the urban, ferries with buildings. Situated between the historic market hall and the port, it shares Helsinki's edge, interfacing city and sea. So what we have here is basically a long stacked series of boxes. Now, I have taken the feedback on board in a number of the episodes. Why does Cahill seem to just love boxes? I'll tell you why. Boxes are buildable. And it's very easy to make a simple box look fantastic. Boxes are also somewhat affordable. So when you take in the criteria of does it look good, can it be built, and is it affordable, a good, robust box is probably the one type of project that will hit all three of those boxes. No pun intended. What I'm getting at is, guys, it doesn't have to be a Frank Gehry masterpiece, okay? It can be a box. Do the simple things well. I say that over and over and over again. Just do the simple things well. Start with the box before we start moving into these gestural, parametric, AI designed slops that we do see a lot of today. Not so many in this competition, although there have been one or two, but that's all I'm getting at, okay? You know, like, let's learn to walk before we run. Let's just get the box right, okay? Can we get the program inside the box? Can we make the box work for the people of Helsinki? And then can we make the box look nice? And I know that sounds so boring, but I'm just trying to a bit of restraint is good. So I'm always a big fan of the box typology, whatever that means. Cuboid, cube, the square, the box, the circular hole inside the box. Right angles, okay? They're underrated. They're just underrated. Good right angle, okay? A really beautiful structural grid, fantastic. I'm not saying it can't be sexier than that or shouldn't be jazzed up a bit. I'm all for that. I'm just saying sometimes a box is good, okay? That's all I mean. So anyway, this section is absolute 10 out of 10. I love it. I love the diversity of space and that you can see how the scale sort of oscillates from one side to the next, and that we have these deep spaces, we have these tall spaces, we have these shallow spaces. We even have the sort of the sort of trapped space between the roof and the structural sort of coffer detail in here, which I just love. I love that. It would have been very tempting for these architects to just fill this piece in here with white, you know, just white or black or poche, if that's the correct way of saying it. So, you know, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about it. I love the splash of color. I love how the artifacts and the art and the exhibition material all really pop in this image. I love how they work really well with the color and the shade of the spiral stair. I love the position of the stair and that it connects with this sort of kind of link bridge structure in here. I love how all these ceiling details would work. I love how the facade works. I love how the screen works. I think this is just a beautiful drawing. Now, I do wonder about the fabric if it's necessary, but there is something playful about it, and there's something playful about the concept of design hall in general. And then the drawings just sort of further reinforce that idea of play, that kind of idea of expressing the sort of fun that you can sometimes find in architectural design and in architectural projects of this nature. So really what I'm trying to say is I love the drawing, I love the aerial view, I love the concept, I love the name. Image 3, again, love this. Image 4, yeah, it looks good. I mean, we're seeing the sort of expression of structure through the external lining of the project. Image 4. Okay, image 4. I will say it's very cramped. I did point out how I thought originally when I first looked at this that the perspective was being manipulated to give this sort of 1960s style collage where the planes of the image are sort of broken and then folded back together to kind of give this idea of like lots of things happening at once. But I have to say, looking at this image again, I'm a little bit concerned that maybe it's just the scale of the space. But when we look at it in relation to the section, I mean, it is quite a thin distance between the facade and the kind of connecting link above. So I guess when you look at this space in relation to the sort of exhibition and the gallery space above, maybe it's not so bad. It's hard to know, but I do sort of suspect that this perspective has been somewhat compressed or manipulated. But having said that, whether that's the case or not, there's so much energy in this image. Like you're seeing people visiting and looking at the exhibitions. You're seeing kids playing. You're seeing people working. I mean, talk about a real mixing pot of a space. Lots of different things happening. That's quite good. Much more interesting and appealing to me than the very sterile lobby-like spaces that we've been looking at previously. I mean, oh, how many times do we just have to see these big, vast, empty, shiny, wet CGI spaces? This has character. This project has character. And I think looking at image 5, yeah, the references are fantastic. And I think that character is the reason why it has made my shortlist. So I think 157 assembly, well done. I think your project's really good. I don't know if it will make the final shortlist, but well done. You should be proud. Good work. And I'm going to stand by it. I love a good box. Big rectangular boxes. Just keep them coming. Thank you very much. Okay, great. So I've talked a lot about that one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to now next up we have in fourth place 111 Part of a City. So this is a project that I unintentionally spent a long time talking about when I reviewed it back in episode 9, 10 maybe. And I spent a lot of time talking about it because there's a lot of work here worth talking about. Now, what I won't do is spend another 15 minutes looking at this project. What I will do is I'll try to summarize what it is about it that I love. And I think I've spoken previously about the presentations that sort of just hit you with that kind of rhythm, like bang, 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 bang. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Aerial, perspective, interior, section, reference. Like, it just hits you with it straight away, doesn't mess around. There's way more here if you're intrigued enough and interested enough to look for it. But at a very superficial, high level, there's enough here to tell me that this is a very good project. So let's go through this again. So let's say number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And if we even just look at something here like number 3, talk about a way of putting a page together, okay? We have the mandatory required long image of the harbour. We have this absolutely stunning sort of, in process sketch happening here on the left. Then we have this really interesting, again, view from further out. What you can see straight away is that the CGI images, and like they're fantastic at complementing the more handmade raw sort of design material that is present in this presentation. Again, physical model, stunning, CGI image, effective, site plan, looks to be very well resolved, and then again another hand-drawn concept diagram. So again, what you're seeing here is you're just seeing a really well composed submission, and that as somebody who's an outsider and is looking at this project for the first time, I can see that a lot of this project has been well considered and well thought through, and that there is a sort of architect artist at work here. So whatever way that collaboration is composed, there is like this synchronized thinking, and that the sketches relate really well to the CGIs. The CGIs relate really well to the physical model. Everything that's been written in the text seems to be lining up with everything that I'm seeing visually. It's a very coherent submission, and I think we have not seen a lot of those. And I think that's why this project stood out to me when I first looked at it. So what I'm not really going to do is go into a lot of the details again. I'm just going to just basically summarize once again why I really love this project. I think they have a unique approach to the way in which they resolve the complexity of the site by having this sort of 45, or they have this sort of angular diamond element that sort of intersects with a more orthogonal element that responds to the old part of the city. And they're also working in relation to the new part of the city, which is the proposed development here. I think that there is literally a physical site model here. This architect has made a part of a representation of Helsinki to work with physically, and I think they deserve bonus points for that. So again, this is an architectural team here that are really that are very passionate about their work, and I respect that, and I want to call it out and commend it. Again, you know me, sucker for sketches. They have absolutely nailed it with this sketch. Super exciting, super energetic. But then they have the technical section here to answer any questions that a jury might have. Now, again, of course, the jury has access to 12 images and I only have access to 5. So all I can do is project that if these are the 5 images, if this is how they are presenting their project in 5 images, I can only assume that they have been even more thorough in the remaining 7 images. So again, what am I getting at? I just think this is a very rigorous submission. I think this is a project that they're a team of architects. They know what they're doing. That doesn't mean they'll win. It doesn't mean they deserve to win. But I just think I want to celebrate and I want to highlight a submission that I call it a serious submission, you know. So you could say, well, Cal, geez, you're talking so much about this project. Why is it only 4th place? It's only 4th because there were 3 other projects that I liked more. That's it. Simple, but really good work. And I'm going to move on now to the next one. So number 3 on the list is Project 142. Now, 142 is a really interesting one because it's an example of a project that won me over. For example, if we just start here, I was super underwhelmed looking at this image for two reasons. One, I would argue, I find it strange, sorry, that there is this departure from the base image that every other submission has used for the aerial perspective. That's number one. Number two, although I'm quite familiar now with the site and the project and the submissions, and I understand what these buildings are, this building, the proposal, doesn't really do a lot to distinguish itself from it. Now, you could argue that maybe the intent here is for the project to be, sensitive and contextual to everything that's around it. But I do think you want to sort of have your building scream a little bit louder, especially on the first image, to make it pop more. Now, it is white, whereas these are grey, but I just wonder sometimes with the values and the composition of the image overall, if that's too subtle of a pop to really work. But that is why we have 4 more images per project. So like I said, this one really grew on me. So image 2, as a page, I like they managed to fit some of the references on here with some of the sketches and some of the diagrams. And what I really loved about this page overall, I loved a few things about it. Physical model, which everyone knows I'm a sucker for. Physical sketches, which everyone knows that I love. So if you put a physical model on the same page as a physical sketch, I'm going to absolutely talk about your project. But that's just my opinion. And then I really love this sort of structural design concept. So structural design concept: A, natural stone envelope; B, timber steel hybrid frame; C, precast high capacity low carbon thin shell concrete vaulted floor. Now, I love a project that is not afraid to get stuck into the detail in terms of how this building would be built, and therefore how this building would work, and therefore how this building would actually feel to be in. So what do I mean by that? Quite a lot of the entries in this competition so far are rightfully or wrongfully, they're very abstract in nature. What do I mean by that? Everything's a bit white. It's all just a bit white. Like it's a bit unclear what it is. What am I looking at? I think that's wood. Is it concrete? Is it wood marked concrete? It's just a little bit vague, and I think it's intentional because I think a lot of architects don't want to have the difficult conversation early on. They want to remain quite fluid and quite open and quite dynamic at the possibility of the project changing what it's made of later on. But in my opinion, I like to see a vision. It's nice, like it is refreshing to see, this is what it is. This is the structural design concept for our building, and we believe in it. And I think that's what this project has done quite well. So again, we seek to redefine the museum concept by integrating heritage preservation with an open-ended design approach rooted in consistency and simplicity, aesthetically, functionally, and technically. This ensures that the project can evolve over time to meet stakeholders' needs without compromising its original vision. So this project is sort of thinking long-term as well, which is always good because I think as architects, we should always be thinking about, the 100-year life of the building beyond us, which is important. From a technical standpoint, our goal is to achieve a stable, long-term solution where minor imperfections do not trigger a cascading or escalating effect. Buildings should naturally tend towards an equilibrium, not veer away from it. A little bit of word salad there. Didn't really quite know what I was reading. But having said that, it was really image 3 that got me on this one. And this is like, oof, this is very interesting. Showing the right things, but also saying the right things at the same time. This page was very impactful. I do often suggest that although as architects we quite often rely on the power of CGI imagery and 3D models in general, there is something about a physically built model that reminds me almost of a handwritten letter. You kind of have to say what you mean when you write a handwritten letter. Like you can't quite be wasteful. It's like a scaled reflection of the actual built act of constructing the project by making the 3D model. And what I always think is interesting about building 3D models is that you have to actually consider things that you don't have to consider when you're making a digital 3D model. So what do I mean by that? I feel like it's very rare that an architect will build a like-for-like 3D model based on the sketch or the drawing. Building a 3D model is an explorative process. Things change, you make observations, things get recalibrated, things get adjusted, and also what you're doing is you're introducing the possibility for happy accidents, which in my opinion is one of the most exciting phenomenons about architectural design. The idea that, the misalignment of a column or the repositioning of a wall can actually scream at you and suggest that there is more to the project than you first realized, whether it's intentional or not. And so basically, I'm always a fan of architects who work with physical models, and that I find that their designs generally are more exciting as a result of that process. Maybe I'm just kind of waffling quite a bit, but this is just amazing. So it's not the first 3D model that we've seen, but I would argue that it's probably the first really detailed 3D model that we've seen. And what I do see here is super exciting. So again, beautiful image. And then yes, to complement that, we do have the 3D images, of course, but we have these stunning watercolors, which I just love. So let's just sort of enjoy these for a minute. Yeah, this one as well. I knew there was two. And then the references, of course, being painted references. So again, we do have that sort of artistic, architectural mix here in this project. And I loved it. So what are we on here? 14142. Good job. Really good, really beautiful project. Love the model, love the watercolors, love the way you describe the project, love the physical models. Image one is underwhelming, but again, would love to see this one go far. So that's really good. So I guess I'm just going to kind of leave that one there. So 14142, well done. Okay. That means we only have two left. So now I'm going to move on to number 2 on my list. Number 2 on my list is proposal 103, points of contact. So this is a project that also grew on me as I reviewed it in a previous episode. And again, looking at it here, I can understand why that happened, because we have seen a lot of projects that sort of go with these moves, generally, and that there are these sort of large boxy elements, and then there's usually like a central courtyard or atrium space in the middle. But what this sort of does that was really interesting, I think what excited me most about this project, and I'll come back to that text, is that although looking at it from the aerial view, I begin to wonder, well, how does this really affect the resolution of the interior space? And then the answer is just wonderful. It's just these incredible, kind of exciting interior perspectives that complement this sketch very well. And I think there's something really exciting about this idea of different volumes and different aspects of the project sort of intersecting, clashing, and sort of coming together in a way that suggests this sort of structural, gymnastic exploration of like space and structure and materiality and sort of atmosphere. You see that with the natural light coming in through and from above. It just makes these spaces look super exciting to be in. Now, I will point out, like I pointed out previously, there probably is some minor detailing that would need to be resolved. It could be quite difficult to resolve, but the overall concept here, the idea, the ways in which columns meet columns and beams sort of rotate and support roof structures, and we have all these different ceiling elements all coming together and pieces fitting inside other pieces. It feels like a crafted building. Bring back the craft of building, constructing space, bring it back. This project could do that. And I think that's what's really exciting about it. So again, let's look at another image. The exterior is a bit strange. There does seem to be some just sort of interesting idea here with the canopy. I do like the splash of green and how that contrasts with what looks to be like a stone-like sort of fluted facade. It's a bit like a classical column, but it's been stretched out and flattened. Love this little window here. I think this is it's the type of project that screams spatial complexity to me in a way that's really exciting. I would love to visit this project and walk around and explore it and look at the details and just kind of get lost in it, So for people who think that I only love boxes, sometimes I love it when the boxes all get squashed together too, like this project. That's kind of what this does. So image 4, another interior perspective, which I just thought was really great. I just think it's an exciting project. I really can't say much more about it than that. Again, in terms of presentation, aerial view is okay, but again, just the way in which this sketch, which is showing sort of how the orientation of the volumes are giving different views and different aspects of parts of the city, that's really exciting. And then how the sort of the big question that you would have with a project like this is how does it all work together? It's kind of like boom, it would work together in spaces like this. I just think it's really exciting, and the images are beautiful. So yeah, this one definitely stuck with me as I moved through the 100. Okay, so that is number 2 on the list, and now I'm going to move on to what is made number 1 and therefore first place in my top 5 of the second 100, and the number 1 entry is 125. Sisu 125. I loved this project the first time I seen it. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit more here. But I think what I really love is it, even now, so when did I first look at this? So this was 125. So even after this, I still reviewed another 75 projects. So having seen 200 projects and now seeing 125 again, I would say I still haven't really seen anything else like this project. And I'm not quite sure how to explain that, but I'm going to try. So again, we have the really beautiful aerial image, because some of the aerial images are beautiful in general, but most of them they're quite ineffective. This one works, probably because it has such an interesting roof profile to begin with. But what you see here is sort of a project in 3 parts. There's this very dramatic plinth stage-like base, and then we have this sort of diagrid truss-like framing on what looks to be like a public plaza area, and then that is supporting this sort of elevating box with a sawtooth roof, which looks like we'd have the gallery spaces inside it. So that stands out. These diagrams are very interesting. They sort of explain parts of the programming. And then of course, when we look at image 2, again, quite technical in a lot of ways. The way in which it explains its position on the site is very effective. Oh. And then it's image 3. I just think this is really exciting. It looks like you're going to have a really interesting palette of, thin stone pieces, and then obviously the timber structure, and then the translucency and different types of glass material that would be used to achieve something that looks really just interesting. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from this project. It's interesting. It's just interesting to look at. There's a lot of moves here, sort of all at work at once. So I really loved it. Interior is stunning, really beautiful interior image. And again, I think the thing that I love the most about this project is how flexible, is how clever these architects were. So let's assume that, as we know, the lobby space, a perspective of the lobby space was a requirement for the 5 images. But what they've managed to do here is they've managed to actually express the flexible quality of the design by not showing the lobby once, but showing it 4 times with 4 different functions. And I really love how flexible and creative the architects have been with the use of the lobby space. On top of that, the lobby space itself, the quality of the image is absolutely fantastic. It's a beautiful image. So there is a concept for the lobby. So where a lot of people have generally just stuffed giant oversized escalators and little kids playing with balloons, these architects have been very considerate and thoughtful for how they could make the lobby work for them in relation to the program. So that was probably the page that won me over the most. So then when I look back and I think, how does the program work? I think, oh, well, the program sort of works everywhere in this project. Clearly there's gallery and exhibition space at the top floor, but that the lobby itself is dynamic and fluid and flexible. I think that's really exciting. Image 5, big, massive collage. Again, I loved how they managed to get all of their references and their inspiration and make it sort of, find an artistic way to express that rather than just simply placing JPEGs with the name of the reference underneath it. I know they've got the name of the reference down here, but I just think this is really interesting. So let's just ignore image 5 for a minute because I don't really care too much about talking about references and go back to image 1. So again, its position on the site stands out. The way in which the project itself is articulated structurally is really interesting. This idea of a giant plinth at ground level, so this elevated sort of public square for the public, is really interesting. The diagrams explain things very well from a technical point of view. Image 3, Image 3, yeah, this is it just feels like quite a rich project in general. And then Image 4, I just love the lobby. I think maybe the lobby is the thing that elevates this project for me most, because the more I look back at Image 3, I kind of think, oh, it is a little bit gloomy. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit scary. It's a little bit hostile. Maybe I don't actually believe all that, but I just think it's really nice. And again, stairs, ramp, but everybody gets to meet at the same place. That's how you do it, okay? That's what I mean when I say accessibility. So this is a very strong project. I hope it goes far. I have no idea what will happen, but I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so everyone, just to summarize one more time, in descending order, that is my latest top 5 for the second 100. So in 5th place, we have 157. In 4th place, we have 111. In 3rd place, we have 142. And 2nd place, we have 103. And in 1st place, we have 125. So what's up next? I have to get through another 100 projects, and I'm going to kick that off with the next episode. In the meantime, please let me know what your personal top 5 projects have been so far, and let me know if I've got anything wrong, because I know you're very good at doing that. So hold me accountable, keep me honest. So in the meantime, if you like this and you're enjoying the series, please like, please share, please comment, please subscribe. Subscriptions are important, and I appreciate all of your subscriptions so far. All the best, people. Thanks very much. Talk soon.